Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Nathan Parker settled onto the couch he'd chosen years ago, back when the house was still just a dream. The cushions sank under the weight of his memories, dinners, movies, naps, and now cradled the silence of his thoughts. Across the room, Samantha was wrapping up preparations for another live stream. Lights adjusted, camera on the tripod, microphone tested with her usual care. Nathan knew this routine by heart. He'd watched it grow from a single weekly live stream to two, until they became events eagerly awaited by thousands. She gently adjusted her hair in front of the mirror, confident, elegant, charismatic. Samantha knew how to captivate. Her words drew people in, her smile seemed to slow down time. To Nathan, she was more than just a presence, she was the soul of their home. They'd been married for 32 years. More than just a number, it represented sleepless nights, good trips and bad ones, shared dreams and abandoned ones. Even so, Nathan remained enthralled. He fell in love all over again each time he watched her rehearse her lines or adjust a dress. The living room reflected who they were, or who he thought they were. Photos on the shelves told frozen stories, their wedding, the kids at the beach, birthdays with hugs and candles. Nathan took in the scene with pride. He was living inside an album he'd helped create. Samantha was on the phone, recording a quick teaser before going live. She wore a simple navy blue dress, elegant, chosen to inspire mature women, mothers, leaders. Every detail, from the color to the subtle accessories, reinforced her message, authenticity, dignity, and the beauty of growing older. Nathan watched quietly, believing in her message, in everything. A moment before she started, she turned, smiled calmly, stepped closer, and kissed his forehead. "Thank you for always being with me. Without you, I wouldn't have made it this far." Nathan smiled, overcome with a childish kind of pride. Even though all the spotlight was on her, she still knew who her rock was. And it was him. The broadcast began. In seconds, thousands were connected. Samantha transformed. She came alive in front of the camera. Her gaze, her voice, her gestures, all of it was mesmerizing. She talked about resilience, about being genuine in a world full of masks. She talked about love as a choice and respect as a foundation. Nathan listened, touched. Because until just a few days ago, he'd seen exactly what she was describing in her. His phone was next to him on the couch. He'd gotten used to following her live streams, enjoying reading the comments while listening to his wife speak. Messages like, "Samantha, you saved me from a divorce," or "Your words gave me the strength to face my depression," made Nathan feel that, indirectly, he was part of that positive impact too. After all, he was the one who stayed with the kids on her trips, who shared the burdens of day-to-day life, who comforted her on nights of insecurity, who believed in her from the start, even when nobody else did. But that night, between one line and the next, a memory snuck into his mind without warning. A flash. A pang of unease. It was that message he'd accidentally seen on her phone a few days earlier. He'd been searching the nightstand for his charger when the screen lit up. A name popped up, Logan Miller. The notification was brief, but it left little room for confusion. Sweet, intimate words, the kind usually shared only between people who are intensely involved. In that moment, Nathan looked away, as if his eyes had committed a sin. He pretended not to see it. He came up with mental excuses. It must be work-related, maybe she's helping Logan through some crisis, it's just affection between co-workers who've known each other for years. He wanted, deep down, to believe any explanation that didn't point to betrayal. Still, from that point on, a shadow formed in his heart. It wasn't anger. It was fear. Fear of losing everything. Fear that he'd been fooling himself for years. Fear that the woman he shared his life with was someone else once the cameras turned off. Samantha kept talking with conviction. She spoke about how trust is built through actions, and listening to it, Nathan felt a tightness in his chest. Her words, which once sounded like music, were starting to have a rougher edge. Something had changed in the texture of her voice, in the way she chose her phrases. He wanted to keep believing. He really did. But that jolt in his gut, that strange feeling, told him maybe blind faith would be the worst mistake right now. Even so, he stayed quiet. He held her hand tightly when the live ended. He smiled, as always. And when she thanked him again for being there, for being her safe harbor, Nathan answered with a calm, loving look. But something inside him had begun to crack. And he knew, even if he wouldn't admit it, that that tiny crack would change everything. Days went by and night had fallen, but the bedroom was still lit by a faint glow from the lamp Samantha always kept on. She said it helped make the place cozy, even while sleeping. Lying next to her, Nathan stared at the ceiling as if searching for answers among the shadows on the wall. The hush of the night felt heavier. It wasn't the silence of peace, but of pent-up tension, of waiting for something that refused to be ignored. She slept soundly, breathing serenely, almost poetically. Her face peaceful, features softened by rest, looked just like the woman he'd met in his youth. But now, that face came with questions, questions he could no longer silence, no matter how hard he tried. The storm of thoughts that had been pounding in his head for days was growing louder. The discomfort had moved beyond his heart and felt heavy all over his body. When he saw her phone vibrate in the early morning darkness, it was like déjà vu, repeating that unsettling moment. The phone's soft glow lit the nightstand with a treacherous glimmer. This time, instead of turning away, Nathan stayed still, watching. His heart pounded, quick and sudden. His fingers tensed slightly, as if they wanted to act on impulse before his mind could catch up. He took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, like someone holding up a house of cards about to collapse. Carefully, he rolled to the side and reached out. The phone was right there, only a few inches away. The screen was still lit. The name at the top, Logan Miller. The same person who'd already raised his suspicions. This time, the message was full of emotion. During the talk today, all I wanted was to be alone with you. I miss you. Sleep well, my love. Those words, read right there in the stillness of the bedroom that had been the stage for so many intimate moments, hit Nathan like an invisible punch to the gut. His vision blurred for a second. The phone suddenly felt like it weighed a ton in his hand. Time froze around him, each letter of that message echoing in his chest. He read it again, as if rereading it could change the meaning. But the pain only deepened. With slow, measured movements, he placed the phone back exactly where he found it. His heart kept racing, but his face stayed calm. The pain had hushed him in a new way, a silence that came from the harsh realization that what he'd suspected, though he'd refused to name it, was now obvious, raw, and merciless. He got out of bed without a sound and went to the kitchen. Each step down the hallway felt like another betrayal of the emotional stability he'd always treasured. He opened the cabinet and poured himself a glass of water. But he knew an outburst right then would only cause chaos. Samantha was smart, articulate, convincing. Any word said in anger would give her room to twist the situation. He needed something stronger than words. He needed the truth, heavy like a concrete block, undeniable and final. That morning, while she prepared breakfast with her usual grace, Nathan had already made up his mind. His eyes followed her, but not with the same purity. There was a new filter between them, a veil of suspicion that couldn't be lifted. Samantha smiled, telling some story about a follower who was moved by her last live, and he answered with a nod and a brief remark. On the outside, the attentive husband. On the inside, a man under construction, or reconstruction. On his way to work, he called an old acquaintance, David Hughes, who was now a private investigator. He didn't need to say much. He just explained that he needed discretion, speed, and, above all, solid proof. The response was confident, "I've got you." The following days were split between two worlds. In one, the usual routine, family lunches, polite smiles, kisses, sweet text messages. In the other, Nathan was quiet, reading reports, listening to secret audio recordings, looking at photos taken from a distance. Each new file revealed a different Samantha. She smiled differently with Logan. She walked with a different posture. She sat closer, touched his arm intimately. It was like watching a parallel version of the woman he thought he knew. One photo cut him deeply, Samantha and Logan leaving a hotel in another town, wearing casual clothes, looking relaxed. She was wearing the same sunglasses Nathan had given her for her birthday, the ones she said she cherished. Seeing that symbol in an extramarital encounter ate away at him. Even the objects seemed to be betraying him. The files stacked up. Nathan had more than enough proof, but he kept asking for more. Ironically, Samantha kept everything the same, her smile, her warmth, her sweet gestures. That made it hurt even more. She showed no guilt. She performed perfectly, as if real life were just an extension of her live streams. Nathan watched it all, searching for cracks, something genuine. But she was too good at hiding. Or maybe, he thought, she no longer knew what was real. One Sunday afternoon, while Samantha was setting up her next live stream and the kids played in the backyard, Nathan got a call from David. The last set of images and audio files had been delivered. The folder was packed with solid evidence, finishing the job. Nathan thanked him, and before hanging up, he heard a phrase from the investigator that kept echoing in his mind, "I'm sorry for all this, but now you have what you need." The truth hurts, but it also sets you free. He hung up with a steady hand. He went to the living room and watched Samantha from afar, going over her notes, testing the microphone. It was the same picture as always. But inside him, everything had changed. The ground that once felt so solid now showed deep fractures. Her sweet words had lost their flavor. His once unshakable admiration was struggling to survive in the wreckage of his emotions. He crossed his arms, took a deep breath, and sat on the couch. He knew he was standing at the edge of a cliff, and that soon he'd have to decide how to cross it. For now, all that mattered was the certainty he carried in his heart. The truth already lived in him. And with it came a new kind of strength, cold, silent, calculated. Because some truths, when dropped with enough weight, can silence even the most beautiful speeches. It was just past 7 in the evening. Samantha walked around the bedroom, choosing final details for another live. There was an almost electric tension in the air, typical in the minutes before she went live. She wore a white robe, hair wrapped in a towel, about to shower, a ritual she did before every camera appearance. Nathan watched her from the door, his expression hard to read. On the outside, he was the calm, attentive husband. On the inside, he was boiling. He possessed something more powerful than any speech she could give, a folder of evidence. But the real weight came from how he felt. He was about to end a story he never thought would end this way. When she went into the bathroom and shut the door, he stood still for a moment, feeling the weight of his decision. This was it. The exact moment. He walked over to the nightstand and picked up her phone. Its navy blue case with gold accents was a gift from him on their last trip. He pressed the side button. The screen lit up. The wallpaper showed them hugging on a beach. His smile looked real. Hers, now he didn't know. With steady hands, he opened her live stream app, the one she used every week. She was already logged in, everything set up. Nathan sat in front of the camera. The tripod was in place, the lighting carefully arranged, the microphone on. It was like the stage had been set for him that night. And, in a way, it had. With one tap, the stream started. Within seconds, notifications flooded the screen. Followers joining, hearts floating up, comments scrolling by. Some were excited, "Can't wait for tonight's stream, Samantha." Others were confused, "Where is she?" Then silence. Nathan looked straight at the camera. His eyes weren't angry. They didn't show rage. There was something deeper there, an exhausted sorrow, a bottled-up pain, a truth he was about to spill after weeks of swallowing bitter words. "Good evening," he began in a low, steady voice. "I know this broadcast might seem strange, and you're probably wondering why I'm the one here." The comments sped up, people asking if it was some kind of prank, others saying maybe Samantha was sick, some suggesting this might be a new reality angle. What I have to say tonight is going to hurt. It'll disappoint you. And for a lot of you, it might seem like a nightmare. But it's the truth. And the truth has to be told, especially when thousands of people are being misled. He paused to catch his breath. His fingers gripped her phone more tightly. You all know Samantha as someone who inspires, who gives advice, who talks about family, integrity, fidelity, love. You know her face, her voice, the carefully rehearsed speeches. But you don't know what happens when the cameras are off. He played the images on the screen. A clear, organized slideshow. Samantha smiling at cafes with Logan. Samantha coming and going from hotels in different towns. Samantha being intimately hugged by someone who wasn't her husband. The comments shifted in tone. Question marks, exclamation points, disbelief. I've spent weeks in silence, Nathan went on. Watching this performance up close. Smiling when I wanted to cry. Pretending to trust her when everything inside me was falling apart. I needed to be sure before ripping this wound open in front of you all. He played the audio next. A recording of Samantha and Logan's conversation came through the speakers. The affectionate, intimate tone of their voices, the laughter now cutting like knives. He believes everything, Logan. Even now. I just can't bring myself to tell him, her voice said, almost casually, as though talking about a simple lie and not a decades-long betrayal. Nathan let the audio and images speak for themselves for a few seconds. The online reaction was instant. Sad emojis, messages in all caps, people leaving the stream, others sharing it in real time. The viewer count was tripling by the minute. Then she appeared. Samantha stepped out of the bathroom with wet hair, still wearing the white robe, a hair tie on her wrist. She froze in the doorway, seeing Nathan in front of the camera, phone in hand, eyes locked on the screen. First, she looked confused. Then came panic. "What are you doing, Nathan?" she asked, voice trembling, barely audible. He slowly turned his face toward her. He looked at her like someone seeing a broken reflection of something once precious. "Showing everyone who you really are." They both fell silent, the air between them thick enough to feel. She took a few steps forward, reaching out as if she could still stop what was happening, but Nathan didn't pull away. He kept the camera on him and continued. "All of you believed a lie. I believed it too. For over 30 years, I lived next to someone who became an expert at hiding. Someone who knew exactly what to say, but never felt any of it." Samantha tried to speak. She mumbled something, covered her face with her hands, but her image, stunned and in a robe, was already being streamed to thousands. Her wide-eyed stare, the towel over her shoulders, that once confident posture now crumbling. "This is Samantha Parker. The real one you never saw." Nathan ended the live stream with one tap. The view count on the screen was surreal. The notifications kept popping up even after the broadcast ended. For a moment, the room was still. The lamp cast a soft yellow glow over them. Samantha slowly sat on the floor, like the weight of reality had finally overwhelmed her. Her body hunched, her face buried in her hands. She sobbed quietly. Nathan placed the phone on the table. He watched the scene with tired eyes. There was a hint of compassion there, but distant, almost gone. The love he once felt still flickered somewhere inside him, but it was buried beneath layers of disappointment. He walked to the door. He paused before leaving. He looked back one last time. Samantha was still there, lost in her own collapse. Nathan exhaled slowly, as though releasing decades of illusions with that single breath. Then he crossed the threshold and walked away from what he'd once believed was his home, his life, his truth. The video spread like wildfire. In less than 24 hours, Nathan's live broadcast had over 2 million views. It was the top topic in family chat groups, gossip pages, relationship forums, and even mainstream media outlets that used to praise Samantha as a model of female empowerment. What once was admiration turned into distrust, anger, shock. Comments that were once full of compliments were now filled with harsh criticism, relentless judgment, and questions that went beyond the affair. How did she fool so many people for so long? Was everything she preached just a lie? Meanwhile, the house that used to be so organized and buzzing with productive energy sank into a thick silence. Their kids, teenagers who lacked the emotional maturity to handle this level of public scandal, started walking around with their heads down, avoiding eye contact with their parents. The spark in their eyes, something Nathan had always tried to protect, had faded. They didn't quite know what to feel, but they carried the shame and confusion of discovering that the role model in their home was the same person plastered all over the internet, accused of hypocrisy and deceit. Nathan kept to himself. He no longer felt anger. He'd already cried, suffered, and bled on the inside. Now there was a cold calmness in the way he moved. He started waking up early, fixing breakfast with his own hands, and driving the kids to school himself. Each small act was an attempt to build a new emotional foundation. One based on truth, however painful it might be. Their routines changed. His presence was more constant. He talked to the kids, but he never pushed. He gave them room to feel, to process, to figure it out on their own. And they felt it all, deeply. Their eyes spoke louder than any words could. Samantha, on the other hand, hid in her bedroom. During the day, the curtains stayed drawn. Meals, which were once shared as a family, were now left at her door by a housekeeper who'd grown increasingly uncomfortable with the atmosphere. The calls kept coming, anxious managers, influencer friends trying to make sense of the situation, reporters asking for exclusive interviews. Some offered ideas for image rehab, while others had already given up on her. Sitting in front of her mirror, Samantha stared at her own reflection for hours. The face the cameras used to see, always perfect, lit up, alive, was now pale, with dark circles under her eyes. The confident look she once had was replaced by confusion and defeat. She recorded a video apologizing. She talked about human failure and moments of weakness, claimed she was in a tumultuous emotional place. But her audience, already fed up with empty apologies from other public figures, responded with coldness. The comments on her reconciliation video were harsher than the ones on Nathan's broadcast. Every attempt at defending the indefensible only drove more followers away. Brands that had once fought for ad space in her stories canceled sponsorships, campaigns, and contracts. One by one. The phone that was once a symbol of her success was now the channel through which cancellation notices poured in. As her reputation crumbled before everyone's eyes, Nathan focused on what really mattered, shielding the kids. That became his absolute priority. He started attending support groups for single parents, looking for child therapists to help them cope with the new reality. He made sure he was at every school meeting, every sports game, every cultural event. He was everywhere, filling in all the spaces Samantha used to occupy. But he wasn't out to prove anything. He was simply reconnecting with the core of what he believed it meant to be a present father. That meant more to him than any social media likes or applause. Over time, the press turned its attention to him. Invitations for interviews poured in. Some praised his calm demeanor, his courage in exposing the truth without aggression, and his emotional control during such a private, humiliating ordeal. Nathan refused them all. He ignored offers, including one from a large American publisher that offered generous money for a book detailing the entire story, behind the scenes, revelations, personal reflections. He spent long nights thinking about it, weighing the possibilities, the financial benefits, the reach of the story. But when he looked at his sleeping children, he realized he couldn't stand the idea of turning such personal pain into profit. He'd lived through enough already. He'd had his life laid bare for strangers. He didn't want to feed an industry that capitalizes on tragedy. His reply was short but firm: "The truth is already out. I don't need to sell it." Samantha, watching her name sink further and further on every platform, chose to withdraw completely. She sold what she could in secret. She avoided talking to Nathan, who handled everything with the formality of someone who had already closed the emotional chapter. One afternoon, she left the house with 2 modest suitcases. A car waited by the curb. No dramatic scene. No goodbyes. Just a quick glance at a house that used to mean success, now just a reminder of all she'd lost. She moved to a smaller, distant town. A place where nobody recognized her, where she could walk without hearing whispers or feeling judging eyes. She found a simple job in a small bookstore in the center of town. She stacked books quietly, organized shelves, and helped customers politely but without that sparkle in her eyes. Now, she was just one more person among so many, invisible to those who once looked up to her. Nathan, meanwhile, invested his time in projects that truly changed lives. With the savings he had, he created a small social program to help families in emotional crisis, people going through tough breakups or needing psychological support to start over. The facility was modest but welcoming. There were no polished speeches, no cameras, no overblown promises. Just listening, empathy, and, above all, honesty. His kids got involved little by little, helping with activities and hearing the stories of other families, learning that everyone carries pain but that there's strength in facing it with dignity. On an afternoon bathed in golden sunlight, Nathan was walking in a nearby park with his kids at his side. He listened to their laughter and the crunch of dry leaves underfoot. He stopped for a moment, looked around. There was nothing extraordinary about the view, just trees, old benches, and a few families enjoying the evening. But something inside him settled. A peace he hadn't felt in a long time crept in. It wasn't excitement. It was a quiet gratitude. Sitting on the grass, feeling the breeze on his face, he finally understood something that used to be just an abstract idea. Some losses show up looking like tragedy but are actually a form of liberation. And no public applause can compare to the calm of laying your head on the pillow at night knowing you've lived truthfully, even when the truth hurts. He took a deep breath and smiled. Not for his kids. Not for the cameras. He smiled for himself. For the first time in a long, long while. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.